Hello, Accelerated Chemistry students. This is Miss Krista Foley, and this is your Chapter 25, Section 4 video notes all over radiation in your life. So let's first start talking about detecting radiation. So radiation emitted by radioisotopes has enough energy to knock electrons off some atoms of a bombarded substance that will produce ions. So the radiation emitted by radioisotopes is called ionizing radiation. It is not possible for humans to see, hear, smell, or feel ionizing radiation. So people must rely on detection devices to alert them to the presence of radiation and to monitor its levels. These devices work because of the effects of the radiation when it strikes atoms or molecules in the detectors. So radiation can expose a photographic plate. So when a plate is developed, its darkened areas show where the plate has been exposed to radiation. X-rays allow doctors to see inside the human body without having to cut in the body. The picture that you see here, color's been added to highlight parts of the body, and doctors use these to figure out if you have broken bones, fractures, so on and so forth. So the three things that can be used to detect radiation are Geiger counters, scintillation counters, and film badges. So we're going to talk about each one of these in depth. So first, let's talk about Geiger counters. Geiger counters use a gas-filled metal tube to detect radiation. When ionizing radiation penetrates a thin window at the end of the tube, the gas inside the tube becomes ionized. Each time a Geiger tube is exposed to radiation, current flows. So the bursts of current drive electronic counters or cause audible clicks from a built-in speaker. Geiger counters can detect alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. Astronomers use Geiger counters to detect cosmic rays from outer space, and geologists use Geiger counters to search for radioactive minerals beneath the Earth's surface. The second type of counter or detection device for radiation is a scintillation counter. It uses a phosphor-coated surface to detect the radiation. So when ionizing radiation strikes the surface, the phosphor produces bright flashes of light or scintillations. The number of flashes and energies are detected electronically. Scintillation counters are more sensitive than Geiger counters, so they can detect some radiation that would not be detected by a Geiger counter. They are used to track the path of radioisotopes through the body, and they're also used to monitor the possible transport of radioactive materials across national borders and through airports. And the last one is a film badge. The badge contains layers of photographic film covered with black light-proof paper. And to reach the film, the radiation must pass through a filter, which absorbs some radiation or a transparent area through which radiation can pass easily. The film badge allows for people who work with or near ionizing radiation to be able to be worn, so it will monitor their exposure while they're at work. At specific intervals, the film is removed and developed. The strength and type of radiation exposure are determined by comparing the darkness of the film in all the exposed areas. So let's talk about how we use radiation. Although radiation can be harmful, it can be used safely and has many important applications. So radioisotopes are used to analyze matter, study plant growth, diagnose medical problems, and treat diseases. So let's first start talking about analyzing matter. So scientists use radiation to detect trace amounts of elements in samples. This process is called neutron activation analysis. So a sample is bombarded with neutrons from a radioactive source. Some of the atoms in the sample will then become radioactive. The half-life and the type of the radiation emitted can be detected and then analyzed by a computer. And because this data is unique for each isotopes, scientists can determine what radioisotopes were produced and infer what elements were in the original sample. Museums use this process to detect art forgeries, and crime laboratories use this to analyze gunpowder residue. Let's talk about using tracers. So radioisotopes called tracers are used in agriculture to test the effects of herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers on plants. And so a tracer is introduced into the substance being tested, And next, the plants are treated with a tagged substance. The devices that detect radioactivity are used to locate the substance in the plants. And the tracer may also be monitored in animals that consume the plants as well as water and soil. They can also be used to diagnose medicinal problems. So radioisotopes can be used to detect disorders of the thyroid gland, which is located in the throat. So to diagnose thyroid disease, the patient is given a drink containing a small amount of radioisotope iodine-131. In about 2 hours, the amount of iodine uptake is measured by scanning the patient's throat with a radiation detector. And then we can use it to diagnose medical problems. So the radioisotope technetium-99 is used to detect brain tumors or liver disorders. Phosphorus-32 is used to detect skin cancer. And we can also use it to treat disease. So radiation is one method used in the treatment of cancer. So cancer is a disease in which abnormal cells in the body are produced at a rate far beyond the rate of normal cells. So the mass of the cancer cells that result from this runaway growth is called a tumor. So the fast-growing cancer cells are more susceptible to damage by high-energy radiation, such as gamma rays, than healthy cells. So radiation can be used to kill the cancer cells in a tumor. So in treating diseases, some normal cells are also killed. However, cancer cells at the center of the tumor may be resistant to the radiation. So there are benefits of the treatment, and the risks to the patient must be carefully evaluated before radiation treatment begins. So cobalt-60 and cesium-137 are typical radiation sources for cancer therapy. So salts of the radioisotope can also be sealed in gold tubes and directly inserted into the tumors. This method of treatment is called seeding. So the salts emit beta and gamma rays that kill the surrounding cancer cells. And because the radioisotope is in a sealed container, it is prevented from traveling to the other parts of the body. And so prescribed drugs containing radioisotopes of gold, iodine, or phosphorus are sometimes used in radiation therapy. A dose of iodine-131, larger than that used to detect thyroid disease, can be given to a patient to treat the disease. The iodine that collects in the gland emit beta particles and gamma rays, which provide the therapy for the patient. And as always, this is the end of your Chapter 25, Section 4 notes over radiation in your life. And thank you for watching. And all the information on these Google slides has been acquired and adapted from Pearson Chem's 2012 edition of the textbook, resources, CD, and pearsonchem.com. Have a good one.